As I was saying a moment ago, recently the United States Supreme Court in the last 48 hours has had some um, even more fascistic rulings than normal, which is saying something indeed, as it's never really been anything but one of the most fascistic elements of our society in living memory. Um, Ruled that unhoused people can be jailed across the country for the crime of being unhoused, a crime that is not a crime on the part of the unhoused, but on the part of the ruling elites that the Supreme Court represents. And I'm going to talk about that in the context of the Powell Memorandum, this rigged game wherein roughly 80% of people have artificially high housing costs and artificially low wages to such a degree in the United States that becoming unhoused is a very likely outcome in the course of their lives. And that is not an accident, just as punishing those people for the crimes of the United States itself is not an accident. And I'll talk about that in the context of the Powell Memorandum, but I want to warn you first against the problem of reform. Jill Stein is running for president of the United States. What happens if Jill Stein becomes the president in 2025 January? It's very possible, right? Both of the mainstream candidates are half dead, and they're imbeciles. But Jill Stein is a reformer. She will not end the United States military-industrial complex as I will, if elected president on day one. And admittedly, Jill Stein has a national operation. I have a fringe campaign of a right-in kind, but such a thing, the ending of this ecocidal military-industrial complex that I talked about before, will happen necessarily in our lifetimes, or humanity will most likely become extinct. And what happens when the oven turns on 5 years from now and billions are being cooked in an oven? Do you think that those people will still continue to tolerate the United States fascist set of systems that have been imposed upon the rest of the world? Or do you think that there's very likely to be some kind of retaliation at that point? So let's cut to the chase. Let's avoid all of the many years of wandering in the wilderness and elect Ben Zion president, because I will, on day one, sign an executive order that will end the United States federal government. The 50 states and territories will still exist in their more or less current form, but federal holdings will be transferred to existing Native American political organizations, which will be built out at that time. And most importantly, the United States military-industrial complex, the $1 trillion killer of Earth and protector of all other killers of Earth, will be no more. Will Jill Stein do that? No, she probably won't do anything. If Jill Stein were president in January of 2025, by January of 2029, you still wouldn't have a public health service. You still wouldn't have a Green New Deal. The things that reformers like AOC, who is an excellent example of this problem, because she's done none of the things in Congress, even tried to do them, or influence others in the slightest to do them. This is the problem of trying to reform a fascist system. You cannot join the mafia in the hopes of changing the mafia. You have to go out and shoot mafiosos in the face. Your best efforts will always be stymied by a fascistic power structure. In talking about the unhoused, it does in fact cost more to jail someone than it does to house them. But to point this out, as many liberals are right now, is to fundamentally misunderstand this fascistic system. This prison industrial complex, this neo-slavery system designed mostly to keep African Americans and Native Americans from asserting their rightful place, it requires this misery and marginalization of the poor. And every single politician in the United States is either in bad faith or perhaps somewhat in deluded good faith, fighting futilely against this larger machinery of the omnicidal military industrial complex and this CIA-run world of ours, the fascistic, financial capitalistic, far-right oppression of the United States. I mentioned the Powell Memorandum. It was written in 1971, and it describes this system, among other things, of artificially high housing costs and low wages and many other oppressive mechanisms, and the overall system for a corporate takeover of American politics. It's one of the most influential political documents written in the West in the last 50 years. It's largely responsible, or the people who have benefited from it behind it are largely responsible for this shift from ordinary industrial capitalist mindset to a far-right neoliberal financial capitalist and even more imperialist technologically driven hellscape that exists today. And all of this is designed to keep the working class weak and divide our ability to build a humane and sustainable economic system. And today we, of course, see the fruits of this strategy. Widespread poverty throughout the United States, the richest, so-called richest country in the world. If you have a system where a billionaire has 400 homes and 150 million people are at the edge of being unhoused, on the razor's edge that I mentioned, where 80% of people are within striking distance because of this abnormally high housing cost regime, within striking distance of being unhoused. What comfort is it to them to know that they are, on average, in the richest country in the world, where there's 20 billionaires who own 60% of the wealth, and everybody else is at the point of not having a home? That's not a rich country. That's a fascist country. And of course, crippling debt, and overall, in many other respects, a political system run by billionaires, for billionaires. The United States, if nothing, is continued this legacy of white supremacy and imperialism worse than any that's existed in the past. There are more people in bondage and slavery than at any time in the past. There is more economic and environmental instability than at any time in the past. And that is because of this seat of anti-communism, the United States military-industrial complex, this fascist system that must be done away with. The policies and actions of the United States have led to countless wars. 50 million people, even by the standards of the mid-20th century, before we had a clear understanding of capitalism's climate apocalypse, the United States was killing millions, sometimes in a span of a year or two, in anti-communist wars. And it's killed 50 million people in hot wars of an highly exploitative kind just in your lifetime, in living memory. The United States is responsible indirectly for so many genocides and hot wars today. It funds them and steers them through proxy mechanisms more than the anti-communist hot wars of the past. But all of this is a disaster, not least of which, of course, the environmental disaster. The crisis in Gaza is an example of the United States' willingness to support atrocities for its own gain. It's an example of AI firms like Palantir and others planning this war using advanced technology in advance and using killer robots. I remember talking to transhumanists who were very passionate about no one ever using killer robots. But these people are all more or less in this Peter Thiel circle. They're not saying that now. Now that killer robots are being used, they're talking about something else. Almost all of these people are uh, guilty of a limited hangout, where if something is off the edge of the horizon, they might talk about it, a good thing in glowing terms, but as it approaches, they shift, being neoliberal fascist operatives, they shift to talking about something else. So there's not even any potential for reform among the technologists or tech-minded of the West. And not just in war that the United States' true nature is revealed. Every aspect of this society is designed to maintain the ruling elite's control, to maintain an unsustainable and cruel a set of systems to perpetuate private wealth and perpetuate suffering of workers. The urgency of revolution, a communist revolution, which is nothing so strange as the fight for a humane and sustainable system in a world that will not exist if that fight does not occur. This is essential for the survival of our species. The time for debates and further elaboration of political theory and all of these problems of reforms and half measures that I mentioned is over. You might say people have pushed back on me against this, saying, the time for discussing political theory is over. We need a political theory to better articulate this. The Marxist-Leninist Maoist main line is well developed. The insurgent theories are well developed. What remains is action, insurrection against the fascist United States and in these other Western fascist countries. But first and foremost, this ringleader, the fascist United States, is the only path. And people are afraid of that. They are not afraid of being baked in an oven a few years after, but they're afraid of taking on the elites. And the only thing that way that I can describe that disconnect there is to say that those people are elitists themselves, right? If you're not afraid to die in one context, being murdered by the elites, but you're afraid to die in another context, dying on your feet like a man, the only thing that I can say there is that you are an elitist also. We must rise up, take to the streets, dismantle these systems of oppression that threaten our existence. I'd like to talk a little bit about cybernetic socialism now. The principles of cybernetics or systems theory, a very closely related discipline, and some of these things that have been used very much to socially engineer you into this more fascistic mind frame that is largely the cause of that ennui that I mentioned a moment ago, feedback loops and adaptive control. These can be tailored to real purpose for the goals of scientific socialist, equal and sustainable society, the collective ownership and building of the commons, not controversial ideas, except to a bootlicking dog, a billionaire worshiper, like these technologists that I've blocked today. And in this new system, technology will serve people and not profit. Automated system will manage resources efficiently, ensuring that everyone's needs are met without exhausting this planet's finite resources or causing the death of billions, if not by capitalism's climate apocalypse. As long as financial capital continues to exist, billions will be at risk, and many, many millions will be harmed by it every year, as is presently the case. We have 5 years to avert the worst impacts of capitalism's climate apocalypse and create a humane and sustainable economic system. It is not a time for half measures. It is not a time for right-wing thought experiments of the technologist. It is not a time for any incremental changes that will probably not work at all, or if they would work in 30 years when you're dead. It is a time for bold, decisive action. We must unite, fight with courage, and build a new society based on these principles of revolutionary cybernetic socialism. And only then can we hope to avert the catastrophic consequences of capitalism's climate apocalypse. The time has come to rise up. We have to swarm the streets, march and protest, with pitchfork in hand, with Molotov cocktail in hand, with repeating rifle in hand, and prepare for the struggle ahead. The United States and Western fascistic systems will not relinquish the power, even knowing that they will kill themselves and everyone else. That's the easiest math problem in the world for you if you're not a bootlicking dog, right? About 30,000 people could be removed from the equation and humanity would not go extinct. If you do not remove those people from the equation bodily, everyone, including them, is likely to be extinct. That's the easiest math problem ever. But they will continue to fight this perverse position of power politics. We must be ready to meet them with overwhelming force. The survival of our species depends on your discernment and ability to organize and come together and use the most powerful tool that's ever existed, the most powerful revolutionary tool of advanced computing, artificial general intelligence, not to further the transition from a billionaire class to a trillionaire class, to further the transition from billions of people being alive on Earth to very few people being alive on Earth, but to dismantle those hellacious systems and build a new world in their place. The United States and its Western allies have led us to the brink of extinction. These relentless pursuits of profit, their environmental destruction, their oppressive social systems are dividing our ability to think and driving humanity toward a capitalist climate apocalypse. And the only solution is, as I have said, insurrection toward building a cybernetic socialist system, a bold revolutionary system that transforms the economy and prioritizes sustainability, equality, and collective ownership. And I'll explain that again a little more in a moment. We have 5 years to make that transition, so the time for bold action is now. There has never been a person in the history of this world who is more important than you. You are a person of history. You were born for this moment to rise to the occasion and see that your species does not die for the folly of private wealth and financial capital and empire. These things must be defeated. As we continue to struggle to confront these stark realities of capitalism's climate apocalypse and these systematic failures of casino capitalism, which is just capitalism, and empire, we must envision a radically different future. And that is one where advanced computing and so-called artificial general intelligence and artificial superintelligence serve as a foundation for a just and sustainable society. And I've used in a recent talk the example of China's Belt and Road Initiative as something that could be seen as a kind of transition to a cybernetic socialist system. But the cybernetic socialist system is the most important thing there. Leveraging these real advancements in the wake of an AI takeoff, not to further this transition from a billionaire class to a trillionaire class, facilitated by basically every technologist who are all professional managerial class goons. Not every professional managerial class goons is a transhumanist or tech bro or technologist, but every one of those people is of the professional managerial class in essence. And we can wrest power of these systems away from them by demanding these things. There is nothing in the world to be done by any ruling elite when an idea has come into its own. But that requires that billions of people embrace this and demand it. And we can use advanced computing then to create a world free from instability of the climate kind or the other kinds which will continue, drudgery and want, through the revolutionary cybernetic socialist program. The potential of the Belt and Road Initiative was initially as a means of fostering global trade and infrastructure development, but I've thought of China as a place that would become the basis. Beijing has about 3 million GPU users who could begin to assemble into an AI agentic network of the kind that I've described as a dramatic force multiplier. And so I think that it's important to think of socialistic China when you think of AI as the most powerful tool in history. It's not perfect. It's a good deal better than these Western abominations that I described. But the main thing here is that we can build tomorrow. You have at Google right now and a few other high-end labs what could be released as an open source, more or less fully AI agentic large language model chatbot that if it were made available to the public and not the watered down versions that are available like Llama 3, you could create a system that would be a semi-autonomous, decentralized organization based on multi-agent systems where a tremendous amount of work would be able to be done because the AI agentic element, this mass of your collaborators in the form of AI, would be able to organize and coordinate projects and would really require only the steering and oversight of human beings and very little mental labor or real labor on their parts. This creates something that I have referred to as a sleeping beauty phenomena, where a person who merely hosts this on their computer and answers a few emails, maybe yes or no emails, throughout the course of a day or week, is nevertheless doing higher end work than anyone alive, especially when you consider that most of you in your much touted professions are contributing significantly to this capitalism's climate apocalypse. Again, I've said it many times, technologists, man, they sure do seem like smart people. A lot of them are smart computer scientists, or have a great understanding of the narrow discipline that they work in. Man, they're so smart, right? But they're not smart because they're upholding a system that's killing them and everyone else. Such a person could not be intelligent. Such a person has something complicated going on inside of their fucking head, but that's not an intelligent person. An intelligent person would uphold the continued existence of themselves and others. And so in this AI agentic class network, or agentariat, that becomes a possibility in a way that it is not today in this US dominated set of systems. The AI agentic class networks are systems designed, as I said, to perform high-level tasks that currently require human mass collaboration and human-level intelligence, but we have effectively human-level intelligence in large language models. Today, as I said, these things are kind of being held back from you, and the Google could have had this. It's well understood among AI workers and watchers that Google could have had this ChatGPT so-called revolution 4 years ago, right? But they didn't see a value in it to finance cultural capital and empire. And they said that they worry about a backlash, but they deal with backlashes of that kind constantly. They really were pretty intentionally holding back the march of progress for a few years. And that statement is equally true today. We could have large language models open sourced that would allow for the creation of this kind of transformative, decentralized economic driver that I've described. And this opens up capabilities for managing dramatically more complex projects, dramatically better resource optimization, enhancing productivity for workers, not for professional managerial class and ruling elites, for workers, across literally all sectors, quite nearly all sectors. Implementing such networks on a global scale will revolutionize the way we work and live, and I rarely see a scientific socialist who even acknowledges that this possibility. Most of them are against advanced computing as being central to their revolutionary efforts, and I find that almost as troubling as the Western technologists' blind spots. Key components of AI agentic class networks: project planning and design. AI predictive elements and simulations can dramatically optimize infrastructure layouts, predicting a risk across many areas of concern and sectors, allocating resources dramatically differently and more efficiently in ways that I could describe at great length and have touched upon on other shows. These capabilities are crucial for building larger scale projects than currently exist, such as ultimately this emerging agentariate evolving into a United Earth Directorate, an AI run a system that dominates global affairs, not in the way that the United States military industrial complex dominates global affairs, but flattening all of these models into something that is more representative, more sustainable, and most importantly, perhaps, after sustainability, a real concern for the material conditions of all human beings on Earth, being able to effectively facilitate the universal basic services on every continent. That is something that could be done by current technology. We had a technological planned economy that was being built in 1973 with telex machines, for fuck's sake. It was destroyed by the fascist United States. It's been possible to do this by this technological standards for decades. But now that anyone can have an LLM that is agentic by mid-2025, there's no more excuse. Other areas relating to automation, intelligent drones will be able to further handle repetitive tasks. Again, these should not be used to kill Gazans. They should be used to build a better world for those people, Gazans, and all people who have been abused by this Western fascistic system. Advanced monitoring systems run on similar mechanisms would ensure the running of many other disciplines and sectors within this construct. All of this is able to transform the functioning of labor, effectively reducing labor costs. Again, the goal of reducing labor costs in a slightly less insane world is to see that these sleeping beauties, at a certain point, billions of people are able to work a few hours rather than work 80 hours a week, 70 hours a week, 60 hours a week for 50 years as a slave, and never have any comfort, any stability in their life. That is the system of the fascist United States. But we can change that with advanced computing and advanced technology of this kind. Predictive maintenance algorithms can minimize downtime in the operations and lifespan of infrastructure, again, across many sectors and areas of interest here. These technologies can be integrated into these initiatives, not dissimilar from many of the projects of the Belt and Road Initiative, to maintain higher and higher standards of operational efficiency. And this is a world, I truly believe, where we will able to be able to do more and more with less and less. Ephemeralization, in effect. Consider, for example, that if you have billions of people in a network, even if the maximum efficient work group is, say, 30,000 in most cases, or 10,000 in some cases. Still, across billions of users working on multiple projects, one such project would be the recursion of the advanced computing systems within those billions of users, so that this block of LLMs, or based on other computing paradigms as they become available, is able to be self-improving to such a degree that you have that ephemeralization, that ability to do more and more with less and less until you can do everything with nothing. This is a realistic prospect tomorrow. If we build something like the Agentariat. Cybernetic socialism envisions a world where advanced computing and things like AI agentic class LLM networks automate labor without perpetuating inequality or contributing to the omnicide that is currently underway. This system aims to free humans from menial work, providing universal basic services and income guarantees to ensure a high standard of living for all human beings, not just entitled Westerners. We have to work within that new set of systems on a triage basis to see that people in other parts of the world have their needs met to a higher degree as a first and foremost concern. I thought I might say something about UBI, but I don't think I will. Well, this is about 40 minutes now between these two videos, so I guess I'll skip ahead a little bit. Building AI agentic networks requires significant technical marshaling of resources and socio-political undertakings of the revolutionary kind. And despite the need for these advanced computing capabilities and the urgency of the climate change crisis, we continue to walk this path of human suffering that needs to change immediately. Starting now, we can begin the transition to the system where advanced computing mediates labor more and more at the building of this proto-agentariat, more and more with each passing week, and it could quickly grow to great size and scale, allowing much of humanity to focus on higher purposes within that, or to live well as a result. And I think that again, you should think of the United States, even if you're a neoliberal, a capitalist supporter of the United States, as every supporter of the United States would more or less necessarily be, consider that you're about to be left in the dust, because China has, in Beijing alone, 3 million people with GPUs on their computers who are mostly thinking the same things that I'm thinking right now. And they could build this organization tomorrow. They could be facilitated by the Chinese government and happen even faster. You will be leapfrogged over. And best case scenario, the United States capitalist would be left in the dust. It's a best case scenario. It'd be better than what you would deserve. And you can imagine worst case scenarios still. But we can build this a sustainable system and invest regionally the resources to take care of people on that triage basis that I mentioned through this LLM agency network. This approach enhances infrastructure projects. It benefits everyone on Earth. It creates a new way of thinking. The global solidarity and internationalism dreamt of for nearly 200 years, but never really able to be brought to pass. That can be brought to pass in our time. I believe something that would effectively be full communism can be brought to pass in every land in almost immediately, if this something like the AI Agentariat were built tomorrow. to build this future where humans survive and where advanced technology is not a tool of the worst people who have ever lived. We have to be willing to take on this insurgent's mindset of combating the United States military-industrial complex, and this the importance of this cannot be overstated. You're going to die if you don't do this. It's not facetious. We can harness advanced technology and advanced computing, the most powerful revolutionary tool that has ever existed, to create a just, equitable, and sustainable world for all. I'm going to talk a little bit more about China and AI agentic class networks, and a technical manual potentially for building them within or without a nation-state model on the next show. But I think it's time to end this. Thank you for your time.